If you guys are already in as a subscriber, no worries. You don't need to be here for it. It's anybody who's never seen this before and wants to see how I trade, what I trade, and how to get into the alert service. We've got some updates about it too, so it is pretty critical that you guys tune in for it. We're going to be changing the structure with it, and so we wanted to express that to you. So get in there. We've got some news and some events that are coming up with it. All right, and then as far as that goes, looks like everything is all right with our service, our tech side. Now, one thing I want to be talking about here, and we'll drop a link for that webinar tomorrow. But the market has, for now, bounced. Let me kind of zoom in here a little bit. You know, we've been seeing a lot of strength. We got a good short covering rally Friday, and then we got this big gap up today. You know, I always say, hey, that's good, that's great that something has moved and gone up in a big way like that, but we need to be careful. The problem with this is, and if anybody has been, seen the way that I trade before and what I'm looking at, what I'm looking at is that we have price running right into the underside of the daily 50, and I think that's going to be creating some problems here because we look at something like that, and that is typically a resistance area. You know, we look at that and say, well, that is a big moving average that price is running into. Just like how it was support. You can see back here, price would run into this as that was being, the daily 50 was as support. And then you can see here that price, one last little bounce off of the daily 50. And then when it broke, there's a big deal to the downside. So we look at something like this and say, this is now a problem that we have now come up here and we are underneath it. And you can also see, look at this price level that we got right here, and then price is right there. So understand that we have now come up, and instead of support, we're now into resistance. And so we're going to see how long this actually is resistance. In fact, there was market on close, which is a measurement of how many orders are to buy or to sell at the end of the market day. There were 2.6 billion to sell. That's how much money to sell there was. That is a fairly big number for sell orders at the end of the market. And I've been telling people, I said, look, be very, very careful about your longs in here. If you are more nimble, this is a good opportunity to take some off because I foresee the market coming back down. Now, what we don't know yet is how far down we're going to go. What I'm looking at initially is I want to see price come down and test or interact with the hourly 50 SMA. That is my first thing. So, not saying that the world is going to collapse and the market's going to fall apart right here. What I am saying is right here is not a good place to be long. I want to see the market come back down to whatever the hourly 50 turns out to be. We're going to have to see if it's going to bounce off of it directly and exactly, or if it actually pushes through to the downside a little bit. It can come down a little bit further and then maybe scoop back up. We're going to keep watching this and see about that. That's my situation right here. The other thing is I'm looking at the 15-minute time frame, and I talk about this all the time. Let's kind of just zoom in on that one. Is that price has not actually tested the 15-minute 50 for support yet. In fact, we did get that little bit right there where price was able to move past the 50, but at the time, the 15-minute 50 was still trending down. So I don't count that as an official test of the moving average. And right now, we've got a big gap, big air pocket between price and the 15-minute 50. At some point, it's going to want to figure out if that's going to be support, and so I see that as being some risk to the downside because I could see price coming back down to that. The other thing we're looking at on the hourly chart, let me zoom in a little bit further here, is just look how overbought this thing is. First of all, it is at or outside of the hourly third ATR. That's really up there. That is the upper end of its range. And also note that there's this big gap between price and the 8 EMA. That is up there. And then you add to it, now we're right here at the upside, the underside of this moving average resistance. So whether this is tomorrow or Wednesday, we're not never quite sure about timing. But I imagine the price is going to come back down and retest some of these low areas. And as I said, I'm figuring about the hourly 50. Now we'll have to see if this is going to be, really going to actually hold or not. Let me just show you an example. Wing stop. You can see this is exactly what I am looking at and looking for. And this is I love using these kind of things because this shows you what I'm expecting. So you can see here that on the daily chart, price ran up there, hit the underside of the daily 21, and same thing. Price was really overbought here on the hourly chart, and what it do? If we zoom in a little bit further here, what I can see is price came down and hit the hourly 50 exactly, bounced a little bit, and then actually went underneath. I wouldn't be surprised if this or something like this happened with the market. So that's what I'm looking for to have happen. When did this happen? Like when did price start to go back down to the hourly 50? It did it right here when price broke and fell through the 15-minute 50. So that is my line in the sand of what I'm looking at. You can also see same thing I spoke about with the market itself was, hey, the market, the SPY, has not touched the 15-minute 50 yet. And you can see right here that for Wing, a few days ago, last week, that on that move up, price never touched the 15-minute 50, and there was an air pocket. There was no support from price to the moving average, and I'm seeing that with the S&P too. And so I imagine at some point, probably early this week, we're going to get price to drop below and through the 15-minute 50, and then we'll have to see what kind of support we get, and we'll get price to move back up. If we let's look at the Qs. It's going to be basically the same story, just kind of different numbers, slightly different position. But the same idea, same concept is there. Let's kind of zoom in a couple of these things. This thing's up here. It's done progress as far as this is the first time that price has moved up across the hourly 50. Now we need to have it come back down and see if it can use the hourly 50 for support. So that's what I'm expecting, is price to come back down to about there-ish. We'll have to see how that goes. And the same thing, price is really quite off of the 15-minute 50. And then on the daily chart, the 8 is still below the 21. So the immediate trend for now with the market is still to the downside. The 8 is still below the 21 on the daily chart. And if we look here, we do also still have this resistance of the hourly 200, which maybe not right now, but maybe sometime in the future that's going to pose a problem. Let me show you another, just an example of how this stuff kind of looks. PayPal. And look here. It is running right into the underside of the hourly 200. Let's see if that is resistance for now. Now, this isn't to say that it can't keep going up at some point, but that is going to provide some resistance. And same thing, we still have the 8 underneath the 21 on the daily chart. So there's still some more work that needs to happen before something like this can really say, okay, we're in a new uptrend. We are still bouncing back and forth between, say, this 50 and 200 on the hourly chart. But we need to look for a pullback. We need to keep finding that support, and we need to see things if they're actually going to start pushing to the upside. The other thing, let's kind of make our way around. Let's see, Esteban. Hopefully you. Oh, what is going on? You're right. I think I'm zoomed in. Oh, you know what? It's because I have such a bigger chart going on. Let's see what I can do about this. There. Thank you for letting me know that. I was not aware of that. This should help. Let's get that figured out. Okay, that should do it. Thank you for letting me know. So I've been talking this whole time about the 15-minute chart, so we'll get back on track with that. Let's look at the IWM. Yeah, it's because I'm on a different screen, so my resolution was different, and I couldn't see to check that. Okay, so IWM, kind of the same thing. We have price running into the underside of the daily 21. That's going to be an issue. And then we also have price, same thing. It is up against a downtrending hourly 50. We need to see price actually confirm. A good example of this is just like this, just something that we had recently. Notice, this is when price moved up across a downtrending hourly 50, right? So what did it do? We needed to next figure out, is price going to come back down and test and bounce off of the hourly 50? It did it for a little bit, and then it failed it. These are the mechanisms that I'm going to be looking at for the market. I want to see, is price going to come down to the hourly 50? Is it going to bounce off the hourly 50? Is it going to fail the hourly 50? How do we know, and what's it going to look like? For something like this back last week or the week before, you could see that it still wanted to go down because price was underneath the 15-minute 50 and the moxie indicator was very much below zero. So things are looking better, things are looking a little bit stronger, but that's what we need to do, is look for a pullback and then make sure that price can get back on top of these moving averages just like this, just like before. So getting down into the weeds a little bit, but the 15-minute time frame is the time frame that I use in order to, as I say, kind of look at the head of the snake. Where is the market going to go? It's going to start with the head of the snake, and usually for me that's going to be the 15-minute time frame. Let's kind of look at the lower time frames here, and I will bring up Amazon because I want to see if this shows anything. The other thing is, when did price finally start to break? Like, we look at this big distance between price and the 15-minute time frame, just like we have that big distance between price and the 15-minute time frame. When does price actually start to break down and towards the 15-minute 50? It's kind of like tree branches. You got to start from various levels. But you can see here, broke when price got underneath the 5-minute 50, and we're just now waiting for price to break the 5-minute 50 to the downside to then go to the 15-minute 50. It's an order of events, basically. So Sabrina, the moxie indicator is a proprietary indicator that I developed, and it is a momentum-based indicator. It helps tell us some positive and negative divergences, and it tells us if energy is positive or negative. You can go find out more information. You can get the indicator yourself, and you get the classes I teach on it over at simplertrading.com/stocks. We'll put that in the chat box here too, so that you guys can go take a look at it. But if we look at the big stocks, think about FANG, and FANG stocks are a huge component of the market. If we look at them and say, what are they doing, then we can also get a better idea for what the market is doing. And you can see that a lot of these are doing the same thing. Look at Amazon. It is running right into the underside of the daily 50. Now, maybe it pushes a little bit further. These moving averages aren't, super hard firm. Sometimes they're a little fuzzy. You can see that before, right here, price just went a little bit past the daily 50 and then bounced a little bit. So we can get just a little bit more movement up there. But what I'm looking at is for price to come back down, retest some lows again, and then we'll see if price can actually go back up. So I'm expecting price from here down to the hourly 50 at some point, probably this week sometime, and then we'll have to reassess and see if price can hold this moving average. So I won't be doing the state of the market next week, but look for that. That's kind of what I'm out there looking for, to see if the hourly 50 is support so that we can go forward from that. Also keep in mind, September is a historically bad, poor down month. Well, that definitely lived up to its Septemberness. The other thing is, we now have October coming here, and this is the October before the elections. I'm not so sure that we're going to get any really good trend. Now, there might still be some stocks that move and do well, all that kind of stuff, but boy, I tell you, don't be surprised if it's just going to be kind of chop and directionless and a very, very difficult market going into the election. And it's the 50 SMA. And then also just one more thing, since we're kind of halfway through into this, I want everybody to know that since we're talking about this, you guys are asking me like what moxie is and how I trade and what's going on. If you guys haven't seen my presentations before and who I am and want to learn more, we do have some updates. We're going to be changing some things to the Moxie alert service that I think that anybody who's not already a subscriber is going to want to know. So come here. I'm doing a quick little presentation. I know the debates are tomorrow, so I got a hard end so that we make sure that everybody can go watch the debates if they want to. But come over here. Proof is in the profits. This is what we're going to be talking about, and how, in fact, for me and a lot of the subscribers, I've been on track to basically double my stock account in a year. And I've done this a few times over the course of the last few years, and no matter what kind of condition the market's in. So we're going to be talking about that and how I do it. And if you guys want to come check it out, come over here. We've got this for you tomorrow. All right, now let's kind of go around the market. Let's say UUP, because the UUP, the dollar, is going to have some effects. Number one, an uptrending dollar can be difficult, can be hard on stock prices. Okay, so I think we've kind of seen that too. This might have played a role. The other thing is that an uptrending dollar is going to be really hard on precious metals, gold, silver, all that kind of stuff. And we saw a big move here. So another little reference of mine that I teach and how I use, when price is underneath the 50 and the moxie indicator is above 0, that's a high pressure, high buoyancy situation. It's what I call a trampoline move, and you can see price is just shooting up like that. So that happened. We saw that price finally was able to get past the daily 50, and you can see here, this is what I'm talking about with the moving averages. The 8 is over the 21. So for now, the trend has changed to the upside. What we're looking at right now is kind of like the market. We're looking for a little bit of a pullback because this thing is really, really overbought. You can see that price here hit the third ATRs. That's kind of the outer range. You can also see there was a big gap between price and the 8 EMA. That means it's just completely floating off of that moving average support, so it's out in midair. And then if we look at the hourly chart, you can see once again, like big distance between price and the 50 SMA, unsupported. And so what I talk about is price will stay above those moving averages on the 15 until it can break, and then it comes back down. So look for price to fade a little bit with the dollar, probably come into the hourly 50 around that area, and then we'll see if it can start moving back up. But for right now, I am expecting the dollar to soften, and we're seeing what kind of effects that actually has on the market. That being said, we go over to GLD. And Sabrina, let's see, Pacific time. So it's going to be at 7 Central, so that should be 5 on the West Coast time. But if you do go take out that link, it'll have it. But I know I'm going to be doing it at 7 o'clock p.m. Central time, which is here in Austin. All right, so gold, huge move down. When did it move down? When price broke the daily 50. Big, big move down. And here is another example of what I am concerned about potentially with the market, just from a moving average structure, is the S&P is underneath the hourly 200. It's an issue. Because if price continues to stay underneath the hourly 200 and the hourly 200 trends down, that's going to be a problem, and it could stifle prices. So just understand, we do have the hourly 200 overhead as general resistance on something like the S&P. It's a kind of a big deal. So you can see here we just pinballed between the 50 and the 200, and then we finally got underneath the 50 and came down. This is the kind of stuff that I talk about. This is an inverse trampoline move. The moxie indicator was in negative space the entire time, telling us that even though it looked like price wanted to go up along these moving averages, the moxie indicator was negative, so energy was negative, and it was likely that this thing was going to come back down like that. So I took one little quick trade, didn't work out, no problem. Then I just missed out on all this, and I don't really want to take a short trade on this. But now you can see it's oversold. It's trying to work its way back up, but it's got some work to do. We don't have any guarantees yet that price has actually stopped going down right here. We are still underneath the downtrending hourly 50, and we're still underneath the 15-minute 200, all this stuff. And again, the moxie indicator is still very far below 0, and we still have the 8 below the 21 on the daily chart. So if this thing's going to bounce, great, but it has not started an uptrend. In fact, any kind of move up right now is just going to be what I consider a bounce. It could be a great move, could be a great bounce, but we have not started a new uptrend yet, and we have not confirmed that price won't go to lower. So be very careful with gold. I don't see anything yet, nothing actionable. And with that, we have GDX, basically going to look the same as gold. You know, it's really far down there. It's trying to work its way back up because it was oversold, but we're not sure that it's done going down yet either, because it hasn't turned moving averages like the hourly 50 into support. In fact, it's just about to run into a downtrending hourly 50. Silver, going to be probably the same thing. Now, kind of with the last few minutes of this state of the market, I know you guys got some comments in here. Let me know if there are any particular tickers that you guys want to look at that might help shape what's going on with the market that I can talk about. With silver, you can see right here that price got stuck underneath the hourly 50 and underneath the hourly 200. The moxie indicator was below 0, and then you could see right here on the 15-minute time frame that price got underneath the 15-minute 50. The moxie indicator again once below 0. This thing was looking pretty rough, and that's why I wasn't surprised that this came over. And it too was even floating off of the daily 50, so kind of up there in the air and unsupported. Once again, it's oversold. It's trying to figure out what it wants to do from there. But right now, there's just not much to do with the metals, and we got to keep an eye on with the dollar. All right, so let's look at TSLA, Tesla. Really, what we're seeing with Tesla is just a big flag sideways. I wouldn't say that I'm bearish overall yet. I did make a couple calls here, like back here about battery day. I said, I know it's a news event, you know, maybe it does something, but according to the charts, this is actually not a long move. It's going to pull back, something's going to happen, because right here, this is an inverse trampoline move. So price should not be over the 50 if the moxie indicator is still below 0, if it's still negative. And you can see here, it was the same thing on the 15-minute time frame. You see how the moxie indicator was below 0, even though price was over the 15-minute 50? And then it ran right into a downtrending 15-minute 50 and shoved that thing down. So, you know, there was a short-term down move. Not something I'd really want to play, because, you know, I think Tesla is generally going to be going back up. It's flagging. Where is it finding support? Daily 50, daily 50. It's pretty good. We also have the 8 over the 21 still. It's still bullish. We still have the fast-moving average over the slow-moving average. That's good. But I'm still waiting for just a little bit more clarification, because I haven't quite seen what I'm looking for. and with my anticipation that the market itself is going to pull back in the next couple days, this week probably, then I think that's going to have some sort of effect on names like this, and I'd like to see if they come back one more time, maybe retest some lows, and then we can start looking to something to the upside, assuming that we see these things actually holding. All right, so let's see. Yeah, Nate, FSOY, yeah, eating the October calls. Yeah, as I said, FS, let's see. As I said, with this election coming up, there may not be a whole lot going on. We might just be in a lot of chop and a lot of soup and just a lot of mixture. So guys, realize this. October might just be a complete mess. If you're going to be making some trades, you might have to go on a lower time frame to really get a clean view of where this thing's going and how it's going to move. Case in point, last week we had a really nice move up in FSLY, right? Something like this. But look at this gap that it put between price and the hourly 50. It was a big gap. This is what I'm talking about with the S&P itself. There's a big gap on the hourly time frame, and I am expecting price to come back down to at least the hourly 50, and then we got to see where it's going to go. So right now, price is there. Let's see what it can do from here. That's about as much as I'm willing to talk because I do see some things on the daily chart, but I rather follow the lower time frame charts like the hourly and the 50 until we can kind of see that coming along like that. And Linboy, junk bonds, do you have a particular ticker that you want me to look at? Is that like HYG? Otherwise, I'll look at TLT. I know that's different, but I'm not seeing much action here either. The one progress that has made is that the 8 is over the 21. So that's good. Fast moving average over the slow moving average. Okay, that's progress. There is still the daily 50 overhead. We're going to have to see if that is an issue. Maybe it won't be an issue right now. Maybe it'll be an issue later. I am seeing some progress here. If you want to go long, you can see here price has been going below the 50, but the moxie indicator has been staying above 0. That is a trampoline move. That's generally bullish. So if we're going to be looking at something like this, for the TLT bonds in this case to be going up. At this point, I pretty much want to see price hold the hourly 50, hold the hourly 200, and then start to move its way up. And if it can, I imagine it'll do something about the daily 50, maybe take a little bit of time, and then it can maybe move forward if it's going to do that. If this doesn't work out, watch for price to move up, maybe into resistance, and then roll over. But we'll see that on the lower time frames again with price over or under moving averages. So yeah, Rajesh, go back and watch the beginning of this because I did cover the Qs and the SPYs. Things are looking bullish, but I'm looking for a pullback first before I really get into something. Yeah, Linboy, HYG, that's what I thought we were looking at for junk bonds. All right, so this actually looks a lot like gold and a lot like silver that they got overbought. You can see price got too far away from the daily 8. There's a bit of a gap there. And then also price got way too far away from the hourly 50. So one of the things I say is nature abhors vacuum. And so when you get this gap and this vacuum, this void, price wants to go back and fill it. That's why if price moves too far up, it wants to come back down. If price moves too far down, it wants to come back up. Same thing. And right now, we're running right smack dab into the underside of a downtrending hourly 50. So that's not really a good place to go long, but we haven't confirmed that it's gonna stop going down. It could run into that and kind of keep coming down. If you're going to be doing something like this, if you want HYG to go up, see if it can do some sort of double bottom. See if it can come down here, start proving that this is going to be holding, and then generally look for price to get back on top of the 15-minute or the hourly 50 and use that for support. Kind of like right back here. You see how price could not hold the hourly 50, and so it went further down. That's the stuff that I look at. That's how I do it. And then you can see here price ran right into the underside of the hourly 50. So really all about these moving averages. And we're kind of in these transitional things. We look at something like this HYG. It's at an oversold point, so it's bouncing, but it could keep going lower because it's not in an uptrend yet. It's definitely not in an uptrend yet. All right, then let's see. One of the other ones I wanted to let's look at some of the home builders because I think that is kind of indicative of the market as well. So something like Lennar, it is looking pretty good. Over here the 8 is over the 21, and price has bounced off of the daily 50 twice. So it's making progress, but I still don't see anything yet on the hourly chart. It hasn't engaged with the hourly 50, and it hasn't engaged with the 15-minute 50. So I'm going to be real nitpicky on something like this. I know what I'm looking for. I don't quite see it yet, and it has not broken out yet. You know, we still have this resistance. I mean, look how long this thing has been going back for. So I would be looking for maybe one more little pullback, something like that. Hopefully it can bounce off the hourly 50, and then let's see if that can actually break it out, if it's going to work. If this isn't going to work, then watch for price to actually, come down, get underneath the hourly 50 like this, and then go further down as the 50 turns out to be resistance. So I'm kind of giving these paths to the upside and to the downside. Nail is the leveraged ETF for the home builders. I kind of like looking at ETFs and leveraged ETFs especially. This is a trampoline move. This is when price is below the 50, but the moxie indicator is still above 0. So that's a high pressure, high buoyancy situation to the upside. And we are seeing some divergence. Here's your level, and here's your positive divergence. But we're still not quite there yet. Notice, I keep talking about this, that gap between price and the hourly 50. I personally don't like to go long when the hourly 50 is still down there, because on this time frame, in order for me to know if I'm right or wrong, I have to let price meet the hourly 50, because if it breaks below the hourly 50, okay, then I'm wrong and I got to get out. If I'm right, then price should bounce off the hourly 50, but in order to find that out is a big distance like that. And so that's kind of what I look at when I'm looking at these things to figure out, hey, where are we going to go? But overall, daily chart looking fairly good. One other thing that I just remembered, let me go to the weekly charts. And if we look at weekly charts like the SPY, here's something to note, also partly why we bounced so hard over the weekend. Look at the weekly chart of the S&P. We bounced right off of the weekly 21. It's a pretty good place for price to bounce. Now we're not sure what's going to come next. We still have to kind of look at, but that was something to be aware of and to be noted. So just a case in point on that. I'm also seeing that with a lot of other names. I want to say something like, yeah, there you go. So Spotify, look at that. Spotify came right down to the weekly 21, so that's a thing. I'm trying to think of all the various other names, but there were a bunch of names that they have pulled back to their weekly 21s. So a lot of names are out there finding some support. We got to see if that's actually going to hold to keep moving forward. Okay. And I think the Qs, yeah, look, Qs did the same thing. For all intents and purposes, they came right back down to their weekly 21 to find that kind of support. So from that point forward, we'll have to keep seeing if these things still do pretty well. And then as far as oil, I'm not much of an oil person, so I don't look at energy like that. I do know that they've been kind of moving up recently, but not my sector. And if we look at maybe some of the consumer discretionary like airlines, they're still having a tough time. Same here. We've got a completely mixed bag, to be honest, because right here, this is what I call a trampoline move on the daily, but we still have the 8 below the 21, and similar to the market and what I've been talking about, this actually looks like a shortable area. Price over a downtrending hourly 50 and the moxie indicator still below 0. That looks to me like this is a shortable area. Now, I don't know if there's much traction. Like price might go from here to here, and then that's it, because that's a double bottom. But right now, it does not look like a long to me. This is a very, very unstable area. Price doesn't usually want to stay long right there. So look for price to come back down here. Let's see if it does some sort of double bottom, and then maybe later we can catch something like that. So we are in a very, very tough and challenging market. Yeah, so Disney is kind of a good indication of what might be going on with, I'll say, the rest of the public and the COVID situation. And once more, I don't see it quite yet. There is the possibility that price is going to be bouncing off the daily 200 like it is. That might be the low, but we haven't confirmed yet. And so the way that I look for a confirmation is I want to see price actually bounce off of an uptrending hourly 50. And so far we don't have that. In fact, we are bouncing into a downtrending hourly 50. So I just don't see anything yet. Hasn't changed yet. This is still very precarious. The daily chart still has the 8 below the 21. So we are in some tough stuff. So even though this might be the low, we don't know that yet, it hasn't confirmed it. So I hope that kind of works out for you. Piton, yeah, I saw that one twice. We'll do that and then we'll wrap up. and call that the state of the market. Now, there is a thing. Jesse Livermore was an old trader back in the early 1900s. He makes a great book if you guys want to look him up. But Jesse Livermore, he had this thing that he kind of discovered and talked about that it's called the century mark rule. That when price gets anywhere near 100 or 200 or 300 or $400, it's kind of a human psychology thing. Oh, it's a round number. I also had one mentor always call it round numberitis. Like stocks usually like to go round number. It's a human psychological thing. So we took a trade on this, took it there, sold some, sold the rest right at 100, and that worked out perfectly. So expect $100 just because of that century mark to be some resistance for now. We'll have to see where it's going to get through and how it's going to get through. So just expect that that's going to be a bit of a cap for right now. And probably if Peloton is going to keep going up, I imagine that there's probably going to be some pullback if the market pulls back. And then let's see if it can actually use that pullback for some strength to get through the $100 mark. Also, once it tends to get through the $100 mark, it tends to want to come back down, test it again, and then go back up. So you might be in for a wild ride when it comes to Peloton because of this $100 mark. Overall, I imagine it's going to keep going up. It's in a pretty good trend. The hourly 50 is in a very stiff uptrend, and things are looking pretty good. I'm looking for a way to get back in. I'm going to wait until after the market pulls back the way that I think that it will be doing. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing and looking for that. Okay, Thiago, let's see. Just saw Trump with the new testing that will give results in 15 minutes. That might be good for Disney and others. Yeah, which might explain also why, say, IWM has been the very strong. Like it outperformed the Q and the SPY today because that's where a lot of these higher touch names are. Think about airlines, cruise lines, hotels, casinos. They're all in the IWM and they need something they need good coronavirus news and something like rapid testing at any point of entry or before you enter a park is going to help these names until we come up with a cure, until we come up with a vaccine. So yeah, keep an eye out on that. I think, was it QDEL that has been making that possible? And so I've been looking at this one. We've been watching it right about here when price turned the hourly 50 into support. Now it kind of got held up at the hourly 200. So what I'm looking forward to see if this thing's going to keep going is I want to see price really kind of maintain this level. If it starts to break down, I'm out. And if it can keep holding this level and start moving up, great. The next area of resistance is going to be the daily 50, which is basically also at that previous price level. So yeah, watch for QDEL. It's a news stock because of what they do and all that. Look for better COVID information, better vaccine, better testing information should help all these high touch type of names. So, all right, I'm going to leave you with that. Remember, one more time, if you guys like the way that I trade, if you like this, if you want me to send you out alerts, if you want to have the alert trading service, we're going to be doing this webinar. We've got a big news information that I want to tell you in that webinar. We're going to be changing some things. It's important to those who have not signed up yet because it's gonna affect anybody going forward. So look at this. Sign up. It's going to be 7 p.m. Central tomorrow. I do know the debates are going on tomorrow, so I have a hard stop just before those debates. You all will be able to see them. I'm going to be watching them, and I wonder actually if the debates might do something in the markets tomorrow. Isn't this fun? Okay, everyone, take care. I will talk to you later. Enjoy, and yeah, let's just see where this week goes. Let's see if I'm right. Look for a price to the S&P to pull back to the hourly 50. Let's see.